let's rewind the clock to the events, I guess, before JangaFX became like a real business idea. And then explain the process that led to this thing, JangaFX.
Yeah, so it all started in 2006 when I started modding Half-Life 2. And in 2007, Valve released the Valve particle editor for the Source engine. And within that library, or in that tool set, they had a whole library of textures for, smoke and fire and explosions and all that kind of stuff. And I would make all these particle effects and mod the game. And I ended up joining a few mod teams, the most prominent being the one that made No More Room in Hell, which was a total conversion for Half-Life 2 that I think got over 5 million downloads. And so we were one of the first games that were actually greenlit on Steam as well, when Steam Greenlight was a thing. And so that was my personal foray into visual effects. During that time working on the game, I wanted to make my own textures instead of just using Valve stuff. And unfortunately, all the other tools out there, a simulation for fire and smoke would take, 12 hours to sim, and then it would take 24 hours to render. And my computer would blue screen, and I didn't have enough hard drive space for the caches and all this other stuff. And it was just such a pain and a hassle, and I really didn't like it. And it made me angry. My computer was unusable during the whole time that this was going on. So I would just have to leave my computer up for days. And then the worst, punch in the face after all of it was I didn't even like the result that I got. And then I had to do it all over again and again and again and again. And then weeks would go by before you even have a usable asset. And it just enraged me is a light way to say it. It's a very light way to say it. And so, I built a lot of this out of anger in some ways, because I'm like, why does software suck? Why can't it be really fast and good and also made for games? Because the tools that I had at my disposal weren't made for games; they were made for film, and I didn't like that. I'm like, I don't care about film; I care about video games. And if Valve's thing, which can do 10,000 particles at that time, if it could do that many particles, which at this day and age is not a lot, but back then it was everything. Like, man, this can do 10,000 particles in this real time. Well, why is the game engine real time, but this isn't? This doesn't make sense to me. And I was definitely naive, but I think that at the end of the day, I felt like it was possible, and that there's no reason that we couldn't do all this on the graphics card instead of just, having it be CPU based and whatnot. And then on the business front, I haven't always been an entrepreneur, but by the time I was 18 or so, which was around 2012, that's whenever I said, you know what, I really want to start a business, and I want that to be my thing. I knew it was always going to be JangaFX. I just didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to build a team. I didn't know how to build software. I wasn't a programmer. I was an artist, and so on and so forth. I ended up, moving to New Mexico after I met someone online who knew how to do business stuff, and I went to go learn from them and work in some startups over there and whatnot. And they were completely out of the software space, but I learned a lot about, building teams and, kind of how to run a business and what mistakes not to make in a general sense. And then in 2016, I decided to give it my all and start JangaFX. We didn't start with Embergen, the main product. We just made a small product that did vector fields. So, imagine if you have a leaf falling from a tree and you want to kind of calculate that motion in a video game. Our vector fields could kind of help you do, general effects like that and give particles more interesting motion with a baked static vector field.
Before you continue, I wanted to dive into the part where you said you're an artist. There's different ways you can express your art, right? You could be a technical artist, which knows how to work with like lots of authoring tools on the desktop, or you could be a sketch artist, a concept artist, or a blend in between, or a 3D modeler. So like, where were you in that space?
If you're a VFX artist in games, you kind of have to be a blend. You have to have kind of the technical shader chops, and you also have to have a lot of the artistic chops as well, like being able to draw stuff in Photoshop, or kind of photo bash a cool texture together, or run simulations and all this other stuff. So you really have to bend the engine to to your will, so to speak, and kind of leverage every single piece of tech that you have. So you kind of got to be a jack of all trades to do FX in games these days.
The most well-known software from JangaFX that the Handmade community knows about is Embergen. And it's pretty hilarious that I associate Embergen with kabooms,
Of course,
explosions. Like when I sent a newsletter promoting JangaFX not long ago, like all I did was show a screenshot of an amazing explosion, right, and just said kaboom, and people got it, right. But can you explain to us like what Embergen offers to somebody who wants to use the piece of software? Like what do they get from it?
Yeah, so Embergen is a fully real-time explosion, fire, smoke, magic generator. So if you need anything that's volumetric and you want it fast, Embergen can do that. And one of the innovative things that we did was we put the simulator and the renderer in the same package. It's all real time, and the result that you see is the final result. And then we took it a step further and made it specifically for games so that you can export directly to a flipbook to put on your sprites in your game. And then we also export all the data types, so you don't have to build any custom tooling. It exports, 6-point lighting and normal maps and depth information and alpha channels and all kinds of different stuff. And so we really built an all-in-one tool that can kind of solve the vast majority of your visual effects texture library needs. And it does all of it in a absolute fraction of the time that any other tool out there can give it to you.
There's your competitive edge. I love it. I've also heard of Liquid Gen. Can you tell us what that is?
So LiquidGen is just like Embergen, but instead of all the pyrotechnic type stuff that it does, so instead of volumes, it does liquids. It's not released yet, and we don't really have a date for it, but the idea is to kind of put the same philosophy of really good software, really making it really fast, putting on the GPU, and see if we can get the same outcome with liquids. Liquids are a lot harder to do from what we're finding out, but we definitely want to challenge ourselves and see if we can make liquid simulations real time as well, and reach the fidelity of, say, Embergen in terms of usability. So we want to make sure that it's really awesome, and that's definitely our next, hopefully, flagship product. So
that's so exciting. And I want to ask you the final question then. I was going to ask, why is Handmade important to you? But we can already see some answers there, because we've talked about the way the philosophy has given you a way to craft the software such that you get a competitive edge, right? In terms of just like the buttery smooth performance, snappy speed that people just like are amazed by. But I still want to ask you the question in general. So like, why is Handmade important to you? I guess it could just be performance, but maybe there's other dimensions to this that you find valuable about Handmade. So could you maybe sketch a picture for us?
So I think a lot of it has to do with performance. We have guys on our team where, if the software takes longer than like 5 seconds to compile, we're pretty mad. And for something as big as Embergen, to say that our exe is, say 10 or 20 megabytes is pretty insane when, our biggest competitor, theirs is in the gigabytes for their executable. And, it's not exactly apples to oranges, because their thing does, far, far more than we do. But the point is that there's so inherently little code to do what we do, but it's so targeted and so performant that it blows people's minds. So it's like, not only are we going to have a very light format, not only are our project files, just a couple of kilobytes and so on and so forth, but optimization is kind of the name of the game here. And the Handmade philosophy is really what helps us, bring that out. And I think one of the big things behind, Handmade is being able to care about your product. I think that, besides just performance, a lot of it has to do with caring about the end product, that the people who are using your tool, the experience that they have. So not only is it about writing good code, it's about writing code that produces an end result that people are going to enjoy.